So I've spent the past week finally finishing up this thing that I began nearly 6 years ago. And as I'm doing that, I'm thinking about idolatry. What is idolatry? And I had been doing a lot of research on it, watching other people's videos, but it just wasn't very conclusive. And so, working on something that they would say potentially could be idolatry, I started thinking I need a better definition of idolatry. And so, before we get to the definition, let's go and actually read the commandments dealing with idolatry. So, Exodus 20. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself a carved image, any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down to them, nor serve them. I think this is really where it trips people up because they're saying, well, I'm not bowing down to my Christmas tree. And it's like, well, then how do you get the presents? We will circle back to this. I'm trying to make a point first. So, anyway, by implication, God's saying, you shall have no other gods before me. And the very next thing that he says is, don't have an image. The implication is that the moment that you do that, if you say, hey, this represents Yah, then he's saying, no, it doesn't. It's you shall not have another God, and you have now created your own God because I've asked you not to have an idol that supposedly represents me or any other gods for that matter. So my definition is that if you have something that represents God, then now you have A, created a new God, and B, you are practicing idolatry by implication. And you're probably lying. Like those people that say, I don't worship the tree, I worship the one that hung on the tree. Oh, yeah, because it makes so much sense that the Romans were nailing people to a fir tree as ornaments. No, because now you're basically saying, you're admitting to basically idolatry because you are tying that tree, those stockings, that wreath, whatever it is, you are tying that to the God that you claim to be serving. And by implication is you have now created a new God. You are lying and saying that it represents the God of the Bible and committing idolatry, which you've broken three of the and if you want to even kind of push it out to four of them, what about spiritual adultery? I realize it's physical adultery in Exodus 20, but we talks about spiritual adultery, so there's that as well. So yeah, the thing is, the Bible is a book that is supposed to be a book of teaching the righteous path. It's a book of correction. It's a book of helping you get closer to God, understanding. It is the testimony of Yeshua. And so there are things that he didn't do that we do. For example, they're having a pork chop or something like that. Yeah, it's against the dietary law, but it's pretty common in a lot of the world to, consume pork. Is it something that he didn't know? Because it's his testimony. And his testimony is supposed to help you become a better person. So now I was going to talk about, say, potential like modern idols and stuff like that. And you can get that from another video. I wanted to kind of get into idols that we see in Christianity and take it a step further. So one thing would be probably the church. Maybe not so much a modern church, since one of the church I went to used to be an abandoned Big Lots, and it was a storefront, and that's where they had church. So they didn't have the medieval architecture on it, such as the steeple or the little round window right below the steeple, or the doors that come to a point. Now they can have all of those, maybe none of those, or just one or something like that. But the thing is, when people look at a building that's got a steeple on it, they're not thinking, oh, is that a swap meet? I wonder if they've got minerals. That's not crossing their mind. They're like, that represents God, which makes it an idol. And especially when they say this is the house of God. No, you as a believer should be the temple of God, and so therefore he dwells in his believers, not in a church building. I could also go out and say, the King James Version only people. They're like, this is the one that Jesus preached from, and that's the one we're going to use, or whatever their rationale is for that's the one and only and all the other ones. Because there are examples of where you can read the translation, but when you go to the Blue Letter Bible and actually see the Greek or the Hebrew or the colored scriptures, as I've used on this channel before, that paints a different picture of what's actually being said. Good example is Matthew 24:31. It talks about him with the sound of how is it put? A great sound of a trumpet. Oh, he's going to gather the elect with a great sound of a trumpet. Well, that's got to be the last trumpet that Paul was. But if you go back to the Hebrew, it's shofar hagadol. It's the great trumpet, not the last trumpet. And when you study the culture, you find out that they have three trumpets: the first trump, last trump, great trump. Again, not a big, we'll go in deep into there. But if you're not understanding this as the translator, I think they did the best that they could with the knowledge they had. If they understood that there was a shofar hagadol, and that is the great trumpet, that is a thing, then they would have rendered it that way. But it's not rendered that way in the King James Version. So, now, what I wanted to get into for idolatry is not Christmas. I've already done 2 videos on that, and I might do another one, but the people that actually need to see those are not the people that are watching it. The one that I'm sitting there looking at right now is the question that I had is, why do these people keep setting dates? And this goes back to something that I believe that it was Bruce Peters that coined this, and so I'm giving him credit for it. And that comes down to Rapture Idolatry. 100% correct, because what they are using is the Bible and various other documents to basically say the rapture is in this season and we can find it. So when they were wrong on September 23rd, and then they were wrong on September 23rd on the Julian calendar, and then they were wrong on the Enoch calendar, and then they're wrong on the whatever, and now they're talking about Hanukkah. And I'm sitting there thinking, why? Because this is their idol. They have created a new God with this idol. They think that they are serving the one true God because they're using the Bible, but they're not doing that. They have created the God of the rapture. This is an idol that they have created. So that's why I said it's something. I can't just say that it's some image or something like that. It is an idea. And that idea is that they have created this rapture idolatry. See, when I teach it, it's just a gee whiz, this is what the early church taught. I can point it out, and so we can just call it the rapture theory. I am perfectly happy with doing that. Now, the question I have for the opposing team is, when they say that it's a man-made doctrine, well, give me the man who made it. And don't give me Darby 1830, because I will always ask, then why was Joseph Mead writing about it in 1627? So give me the man who made it. Until then, I'm going to have to go with what the early church taught. And so, yeah. Now, is that to say that it will happen? It's eschatology. We will see how it plays out. But for the time being, that's where I'm going to lean with my belief system. So, but I do not hold to that it's an idol in my life. And that's why I study it for its, educational purposes to understand. There are things that I study that I don't believe. But when it comes to this, the reason they keep setting dates is because it's an idol to them. This is the worship that is part of this particular idol and this man-made God that they have created, this God of the rapture. Not to say that it's not going to happen, that it's not an appointed time, but what I'm saying is the parameters for this God is they believe that by setting dates, they are watching. Instead of actually thinking about it from a century point of view. Like, it would be stupid for me to be, as a Marine, watching a gate or watching over the ammo supply point or something like that, and to sit there and do all this research to say, okay, the enemy's going to show up at exactly 2:59 a.m. on Thursday because I've done all this research and it's going to land on Hanukkah. And see how stupid that sounds? No, you watch. That means watching. You can't just come up with a calculation to figure out when it's going to take place. So anyway, that was kind of the point that I wanted to make, is that really when I started studying idolatry, I can see where people just go way out in left field with stuff. And that is really, like, I finally got my answer. It's like, why are they doing this? And it's true. It's they are idolizing the rapture itself. So, yeah, I'm just gonna stop it there because the sun is setting and the cameras, and then I'm gonna give y'all a quick little video on this thing because it's probably close to $4,000 in it. You might as well enjoy it.